You know, it always looks cooler in the movies and on TV. But in real life, it's not always that great. You know, 007 made the spy out to be cool, but in real life, spies usually get caught up in a web of lies. That's the problem with being a liar is you don't remember who you told what lie to. And when I say they get caught up in a web of lies, you probably assume I'm talking about, well, the government they're spying against catches them. Or maybe another spy catches them. And a lot of times that happens. But sometimes a spy gets so entrenched in this double life that they're leading that they start to get caught up in their own lies. They start to believe the lies that they're telling themselves. I'll give you a perfect example. This man's name is Kim Philby. Kim Philby was one of the what's called Cambridge Five, and I didn't really know about this until I started researching this lesson, but in the late 1920s, early 1930s, the Russian government infiltrated Cambridge University. And they were able to basically convert 5 guys who were in college and turned them into double agents. See, Mr. Philby was a high-ranking intelligence officer in MI6, which is the British equivalent to the CIA. But he also was a double agent for the Russians. And for nearly 30 years, he literally betrayed his country because he had this deep-seated belief that communism was the best way. Now, that's one thing to act on your principles. But the interesting thing is that Mr. Philby didn't get caught by the British government. It was brought to light that Mr. Philby was about to be prosecuted, and he was able to escape to Russia in 1963. Now, you think somebody willing to lie against their own homeland for 30-something years, that when they finally got to go to Russia, the place where they've been working for, the place where they believe that they're ideologically agreed with, that they aligned more with that than they did the British government, you think that when he got there, he would be happy. But turns out that was the furthest thing from the case. You see, when Mr. Philby got to Russia, he was even more miserable than he was before. Mental health issues and finally alcoholism overtook him in the 1980s. He literally drank himself to death. You see, apparently he was more in love with the double life and the lies that he was telling himself than he was what he had told himself that he was really doing all this for. You see, that's the danger this morning. The reason I bring all this out is because it's dangerous when you start lying to yourself, because you just might start believing it. And this morning, to kind of bring this out and draw it out in a spiritual context, I want us to look at the nation of Israel. These were God's chosen people. These were the people who should have had it, should have known better. And we can sit here and lob all these things against them, but in reality they're people just like we're people. And I want us to look at a certain event that they had in their history that literally changed the course of the Jewish nation. And from that, I want us to learn the dangers of lying to ourselves, and I want us to look at some lies that we still tell ourselves today. So if you got your Bibles, go with me to Numbers chapter 13. That's where we're going. We're not going anywhere else today. Numbers chapter 13. You see, in Numbers chapter 13, God's people are ready to enter the promised land. God has delivered them out of Egypt by Moses and his leadership. They've come through the wilderness. Joshua now has taken over after Moses' death. And they're just about ready to go in. But before they get ready to go into the land, they send out 12 spies. And you know this story, right? 10 of those spies come back with one report, and 2 of them come back with another. And we're going to look this morning at the 10 spies and the people's reaction to the 10 spies. And we're going to draw out all these lies that we tell ourselves. Now, The first problem that we have is that we tint the facts. And when I say tint the facts, I use that word very, very precisely. When I think about tinting, I think about window tinting. You know, when I was a teenager running around high school, the cool thing was to put tint on your car. You know, it made it cooler and all this stuff. It looked cooler is why we did it. But they had a law. You could only put a certain level of tint on the window before it was illegal. And there was a reason for that, because the darker and darker and darker that you made it, it got hard to see at night. You began to put yourself in danger the more you tinted the vehicle. Some people even put it on the windshield, of all things. You see, tint changes how we look at something. And here in Numbers 13, beginning verse 25, we're going to see how they tinted the facts. At the end of 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. And they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back the word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land, which they told him. And we came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of Negeb, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. You see, sometimes we tint the facts. And I guess I need to back up right here. I said they were under the leadership of Joshua. They're still under Moses at this point. I got that wrong, see? When you get your facts wrong, you got to back up. You see, they tell all these facts, but I want you to notice in verse 28. Do you see that little word, however? That word's got some emotion behind it. Right? This land's a good land. It's great. It's got all the stuff. Look at the fruit. However, that's got a negative feeling to it, doesn't it? If you change that and put the word and there, we came to the land which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. And the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. It feels different when you change the word. Because sometimes when we look at the facts, we interject our own emotions on top of them. See, they've already got their mind made up. This is too hard. We can't do this. And you understand that God is going to use the very thing that they think is the reason why they can't go into this land. He's going to use the very thing, well, there's giants there, and there's all these things, and they're stronger than we are. He's going to use the very thing that they think is negative to bring him glory. You see, the stronger they are when they overcome him, they're going to look at those people and say, like Rahab the harlot did, God must be with you because there's no way you're doing this without him. A lot of times we get like Chicken Little. Oh, the sky's falling. No, honey, you got hit in the head with an apple. And it may hurt, but the sky's not falling. Right? We lie to ourselves and we say, well, oh, this is the way it is. No, it's not. It's how you perceive the facts. Right? We tint them. And that tinting process leads us down a bad pathway. You see, when you go to the next verse, number 30, Caleb and Joshua try to get out in front of this. Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are able to overcome it. You see, these 10 spies stood up and said, you know, it's a great land, but boy, however, they're strong. They're giants there. And Caleb says, so what? God's given it to us. We can overcome it with God. And yet how many times have I ignored the counsel of wise people? The counsel of people who love me and who want the best for me, who are trying to give me another perspective on the situation in which I find myself. And because it doesn't line up with this narrative that I built in my mind, that the sky's falling and this is horrible and this is going to be the end of everything. Because it doesn't line up with my internal narrative, what do? I just ignore them. That's what the people are going to do here to Caleb and Joshua. They're going to be the only two people from their generation who are going to enter into this land. the way the people react is literally going to cause a generation of people to die in the wilderness. Now you think about that. All because they believed a lie that they told to themselves. We can't do it. They're too big for us. They're too strong. You think about how dangerous that is. Ideas are dangerous. Because some of those ideas let you know that you can't do it. You think about, some of you in here have walked around all your life with sentences that start with, I can't, fill in the blank. I can't do this. I can't do that. You know where you got them from? They probably didn't even come from you. They probably come from people around you when you were young who, in spite of the fact that they should have been the ones that loved you, in spite of the fact that they should have been the ones protecting you and keeping you safe, they were the ones who were hurt people, and because of that, they took their pain and poured it out on you. And you've walked around your whole entire life and said, I can't. Right? You've taken people in your life who said, Doug, it's not true. It's not that way. A lot of us carry around garbage in between our ears, and we need to set it down and turn it loose because it's not true. How many times has God sent us somebody to tell us different? And we can't even, I'm not saying we blindly accept everything somebody says, but when I can't even stop to consider, I wonder maybe if they're right. I wonder if there's something to the thing that they're saying. Why would they come to me and they say this? When I can't even ask those questions, I'm lying to myself. We go a little further. Here in verse 31, here's another nasty habit that we have as human beings. We take ideas that we have and we cement them in our mind as facts. Verse 31. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. How do you know that? How do you know they're stronger than you are? You see, it's one thing to look at the situation and say, you know what? I'm about 6'2" and they're 9 foot. Okay, this don't look great. It's one thing to say, I'm worried that they're stronger than we are. It's another thing to even say, I think they're stronger than we are. But here, they've jumped plumb past the doubts and the worries, and they just made it fact. We're not able to go against the people, for they are stronger than we are. Who told them that? Where did they get that? You see, they do the same thing that we do. They take these facts that are not really facts. It's kind of like what happens when you take a bag of Quikrete and you pour water in it. It gets hard. Sometimes my daddy used to take, when he needed to do something outside, he wouldn't even bust a bag of Quikrete open. He'd just grab it and throw it outside, and when it rained on it, what happened? It got hard. Well, you know what happens when you take these facts that are driven by what? Why are they? What's causing them to say that we can't do this? They're stronger than we are. Fear. You take fear and doubt and mix them together, and it's like concrete and water. It just cements it in your brain. How many people walk around prisoned in their life? And they're the ones that built their own prison. They built their own prison and locked themselves up. They carry all this around, all this emotional baggage, when they're the ones that's got the key. They're lying to themselves. And it's horrible and it's a shame. And you know what? Us spiritually, you think, well, maybe we should be better than that. No. We ain't, because you know why? Because Satan wants us to do this. I heard somebody, a wise man, one time say that Satan sounds just like me. I think about that passage in Revelation. I think it's around chapter 12 that says, Satan is accuser of our brethren day and night. You know who he does a lot of accusing to? He accuses me to me. You're not good enough. You're a failure. You don't look the right way. You didn't do that right. On and on and on it goes. And when we take fear and doubt and mix them together, we turn guesses into gospel. All right? And a lot of times these stories that we believe, they're not even logical. Look at verse 32. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it of a great height. Do you understand what they just said? Well, there's giants that live there, but the land, man, the land devours its inhabitants. Now think about that. What they just said is that there's these big, strong people that live there, but the land's going to devour them. Well, if the land is going to devour them, why don't you just wait them out? You know, if the land is that mean, you just give them a little while and the land will devour the giants, and then there's no more giants, and then you just go in and take it. You see, this don't even make sense. You know why? Because they're not using their logical brain. They're running in fear. It's not a logical problem, is it? It's an emotional problem. And I've said quite a few times before that you have to quite oftentimes fight what you feel with what you know. And I don't make any qualms about that word fight, because usually when you get in this situation, it's a fight. It's a street fight, knock down, drag out, right? Every alarm bell in your head is going off, and but you got to fight yourself. And it's possible. Is this thing that I believe, is it really the case? Is it really true? I know it feels that way. I know that's kind of the catastrophe scenario that I made up in my mind, but can I even stop and ask myself the question, is this really the case? Is this just me being worried and fearful? Is this Chicken Little? Or is this an apple on my head? You know, a lot of times, and like I say, this is a struggle. I make no bones about the fact that this is easy. It's not easy. It's hard. But it's doable. And so many times in life, just stopping and taking a breath and saying, okay, I know how I feel, but is this how it really is? And when you stop and ask that question, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the upper half of your brain that, thinks and is reasonable. You're trying to get it to see is what your fear side of your brain, is it in reality? I won't get into the psychology of it, but there's a part of your brain that's wired up like a car alarm. If you bump up against a car and it's got a car alarm on it, that's another thing back when I was a kid. I don't guess they do that so much anymore. But if you bumped up against the car, the alarm goes off. Your brain's got an alarm system in it. It's trying to protect you. But sometimes it's false triggered. Sometimes you got to ask yourself, is it really as bad as I think it is? Now, one last thing, and this may be the worst one. Look at verse 33. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers. Now stop right there. We seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers. And then look at the second half. And so we seemed to them. How do they know how they seemed to the giants? Were they mind readers? Yes, so many times in our life we have this Chicken Little thinking, and we take our thoughts, our fear-driven, worry thoughts, and we project them in the heads of everyone else around us. I think this about me, and everybody else thinks this about me too. Can I give you a little news flash? I hate to burst your bubble this morning, but no, they're not. Because here's the dirty little secret, is that generally most people are walking around thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about you. Really? Yeah, really. I'm not saying nobody ever thinks about you, but so many times we take this negative self-image that we have of ourselves, this negative thoughts, and we project it into everybody else. We seem like grasshoppers in our sights, and we know they were thinking the same thing. No, you don't. There's a Greek word for that. It's called quit it. There's people laughing at me. I know why. And it's easy to do. I've done it. You want to worry about what other people think, grow up, be the fat kid, okay? But not everybody's thinking what you think they're thinking. You don't know what they're thinking. If they don't tell you what they're thinking, you don't know. And furthermore, for most part, you don't need to know what they're thinking. There's a reason God didn't make us mind readers. He wanted marriages to last, okay? All right, everybody got it. Woo! I was worried about that. Okay, so we looked at all these things, these lies that we tell ourselves. And I think you understand how dangerous they are. Look at Numbers chapter 14. What happens after the spies come back and give this negative report? All the congregations raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, would that we have died in the land of Egypt, or would that we have died in this wilderness. They're going to get their chance, by the way. Why is the Lord bringing us in this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones become like prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to one another, let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt. God, who delivered them out of the hands of their enemy, who parted the sea, who caused the people of Egypt to literally take the gold and the silver out of their houses, out of their nose and out of their ears, and give it to the people and say, get out of here. The God that literally delivered them, they're now looking at him and saying, I don't know what God's doing. I just wish he'd have left us alone and let us die. Can you imagine? Why did they do this? Because they were lying to themselves. It's really, really easy to do, but it can affect your spiritual eternity. It can affect your eternity. Because, as 2 Timothy 1:7 says, God did not give us a spirit of fear. That word there doesn't mean we'll never feel fear. That word spirit of fear means literally that God did not intend for us to be run off of and driven by. Our core tenet was not to be fear. God did not give us a spirit of fear, but a power and love and of a sound mind. I don't know what you're going through this morning. Maybe you've been lying to yourself. I don't know. I'm not a mind reader. But here's what I do know. You got a God that loves you. You're surrounded by people that love you. And if you've been lying to yourself all your life, well, today is a day that you can stop. I don't know what you need, but if we can help you in any way this morning, would you come?